Okay, so what I want to talk about tonight, just for fun, is some of the old MG vendors. I want everyone else to include to weigh in on this, but I can't have everybody talk at once, so I don't know how we're going to do this. I thought maybe we could go state by state, like who remembers firms in California? But let me just talk about some of them that I remember from when I first got into MGs in 1960, 1968. Moss Motors was there, although I didn't discover them until about 1969. Some guy clued me in. I got one of the earlier Moss Motors catalogs. There was also Willem B. Hahn and MG Mitten. And from them, you could purchase, oh my God, all this great stuff, gloves and steering wheels and car covers, MG Mitten. I don't remember the woman's name that made MG Mitten. And all those companies, the accessory companies, they're all gone now. It's things are just altogether different. When I first started off in business, there was a firm out of New York, I think out of New York City, Columbia Motor Corporation. And they had, the only section I ever opened up into was the MG section. But it was, their part numbers were really, really handy. For instance, the timing chain for a T-type engine was a 3DR60. Now, how could I remember that? Because it's 3/8 of inch link. That's how long the links were. That was what the 3 DR, which is double roller, and the chain was 60 links long, 3DR60. An MGB chain is a 3DR52. The more modern one would be a 3SR single row, 52. But those are companies that I used back in the day. Besides the great network of MG dealers who still had new things on their shelf, like camshafts and cam bearings and brand new grills for MGAs that fit. It was tremendous. So anyway, I want to ask if you've got, I see somebody up there with a Moss Motors catalog, Jay Chap. I see you up there. Which issue of the Moss Motors catalog?
Well, this is a rather famous photograph in the Moss catalog.
Yes, it is.
It's backwards because of the way my scanner did, and you probably can't read the numbers, but down in the lower left is part number 60, which is the photographer's toe.
Al Moss's toe. Al Moss's toe.
Al Moss's toe, right? Because in those days, they just laid it all out on the floor and took a picture of it, and then put numbers to it, and then put their part numbers. So this is 1975, and in just a second, hold on a sec.
Which issue is this? This must be edition number 8 or something. 65.
18. Edition 18.
Okay, all right. But so it no longer says 50 cents cheap on the front cover.
Yes, it does. I'm getting ready to show you that.
So that's obviously a play on Mad Magazine, because that was the way that they titled theirs. And on the back pages, probably not anymore. They had not on the very back cover. They had Knott's Berry Farm. They had pictures from Knott's Berry Farm. They'd have the forge on there or something or other, and it'd say our workshop. Oh, that's, yeah, okay, all right. Yep, I see that there, Judd. So very cool, very cool. So in Abingdon Stairs, okay, so that's Jerry Gogan back in the day when Abingdon Spears was strictly a T-type company, and they provided parts for just T-types for years and years and years. Jerry timed out. He got sick, sold it to a guy who ran it, I think maybe out of its same place, and then they moved maybe up to New Hampshire, and then Ed Cook. Then more recently, Ed Cook and his brother had it, but now it's changed again. I don't know what the genealogy is of Abingdon Spares.
His name is Jason. He's in Maine.
Okay, all right, okay. And is he a T-typer or what, Fred?
I don't know if he's T-type only, but he sells MGB and T-type.
Okay. Okay.
It's basically the same business.
Oh,
We sold
yeah,
to him, so
Yeah, there you are. Okay.
he's quite a British car person, and he seems to be doing pretty well with the business. So I'm encouraging him as much as I can. So hopefully it succeeds with him too.
Wonderful. And you were in business with your brother, is that correct?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, so Abingdon Spares has been around for a long, long time. The name, it's changed its focus from time to time. They used to have you remember when products were priced, when you had the price on a product, and Jerry must have had when I worked in a supermarket, it was called a composter, but they must have had something a lot like that. And all the Abingdon Spares had little blue numbers on them, and some of them even the Abingdon Spare stickers were on top of Moss stickers, because you can't handle everything yourself. But Judd, you got something else up. You're got something else up in the air there.
I just showing the old Abington Spares catalog, 75 again.
Okay.
And
oh yeah. Oh, look at this. Oh boy. Okay. One of their newsletters. So does anybody out there have an M&G catalog? Bedinsky and Bedinsky from George Bedinsky. George had this handshake deal with Al Moss. And so Moss would send catalogs out to George. He'd tear the covers off. I don't know if he tore the covers off. They went out there without covers. Anyway, George would put his cover on it. So it was the Moss catalog, except that it was M&G. They got I think Rob, one of them told me that they got a letter one time from MG, like a cease and desist. You know, you come on, M&G is too close, you know, and you're violating our copyright and all that kind of stuff. But the firm M&G, Bedinsky and Bedinsky, was formed earlier than 1925 when the MG came out. So they, in fact, were older than the MG company. So that it came to nothing. George had a nice business there. He made a lot of replacement parts. The can, for instance, for the turn signal switch for an MGA, there's two different Bakelite cans that the guts all sat in, and over a period of time, it was not unusual to have the threads strip out on the front of it if it got loose, and then you kept working it, and it finally would break or the threads would strip. So he sold just the can, so you could replace all those pieces. Anybody else?
Going back to MG Mitten, the woman's name was Marion Weber.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I haven't heard that name in so long.
Yeah, I've got a 1963 rodent track here with an ad in it from MG Mitten. I used to get a lot of stuff from them.
No, they sold a lot of cool stuff. Sterling silver ashtrays and grab bars and all kinds of stuff. So Judd, who is Maggie's MG Spares in South Carolina? I figured you'd know that because you're from there.
I looked that up and I don't. That's in Charlotte, which is about 65 miles northeast of here. And it's a great big place, almost as big as Atlanta, and I try to avoid it like the plague. There was a place down in Pendleton, just outside of Clemson, called the Beehive.
Yeah.
A guy named Gordon Strickland runs it. And there used to be a place near there called Europair, run by two British guys when I was back in school between 64 and 70. And they kept my 62 TR4 running because I didn't know anything more than how to put gas in it and turn the key. But I can't find any record of them now anymore.
Okay. Yeah, Gordon, is Gordon still in business at Beehive?
He's closed the Beehive, but he still does like a mail order type thing a little bit. But no, the store itself, I was there a couple of years ago, but it is now closed. The physical plant is closed down.
So there's some people that vacation in Florida from England, and they have a shop named the Beehive. And I said, "Oh, there's a place like that in the States. They probably copied your name." And they said, "No, we copied his."
Funny. I mean, I looked it up under BEE HIVE, and that didn't work. You have to go B-HIVE.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'd seen Maggie's MG spares. They had great big ads for a real short time, like in Hemmings Motor News, and then that was it. So, anybody have a SADIC automotive catalog, SADICK, out of New Jersey? That's an old vendor. So Pete Cosmedes, who worked for Moss Motors for years, and then had his own shop in Maple Shade, New Jersey, put together that catalog. Well, that's an old firm. And then Bill Terry in Southern Illinois, Terry's Terry's Jaguar parts. So Bill Terry had this. He was quite a good sized firm, and they were doing a lot of business. They reconditioned cylinder heads too, I think. And his son thought, well, hey, we can expand this out a little bit. And they not under the name of Terry's, but under another name, started selling MG parts, had a catalog. But then Bill Terry's son died or was killed, something or other, and Bill then sold out Terry's Terry's Jaguar parts to Engel, ENGEL, out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I'm not sure that even Engel's still in business. They sold out to a firm in Germany. So if you make an order through Engel and Kalamazoo, the part comes real fast, but it comes from Germany. And I'm not sure who it comes from in Germany. I don't know the continental names as well as the ones here in the States.
Hey, John,
Yeah,
did you ever hear of a company called Wilco?
no.
WILCO
Wilco.
out of Rochester. I got a 1962 Car and Driver,
Okay.
and it's about the 1963 MG. I don't know can you see it?
Yeah.
And there's a company in there, and it says Sterling Moss, Wilco, Rochester, New York.
Wilco. No.
After it looks like they sell a lot of aftermarket things.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, there's no end of those kinds of people. So
Yeah, I was just paging through this old
Yep.
1962 Car and Driver, just to see if there was any parts companies in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Everybody remembers AMCO, which obviously no longer exists.
And that it sounded like AMCO, American, right? But it wasn't. It was I don't remember what the acronym is. There's an acronym.
American Carry Corporation.
CARRY.
American Carry Corporation, AMCO, AMCO.
Okay.
They were a California company. And they made all kinds of accessories for all kinds of British and American cars, luggage racks and floor mats and that sort of thing.
those AMCO floor mats, Moss makes them today. The ones that Moss has for sale are just like those AMCO ones, except they don't say AMCO on them. Yeah, they're heavy duty. Oh, those things were nice, and their tops were really, really nice. And
I have an MGA right now that has an AMCO top on it, and it's been sitting for 32 years in a garage, and it's still perfect.
AMCO made interiors too, and they're T-type interiors. So every now and then we get one in the shop, and you could tell because the side pocket, in the original TD, it's just got that item strip along the top. But this thing sort of had you could get into the pocket more easily. It was actually kind of nicer, but it had a sort of a cord-like top to it, a little fluff or something or other. And then Sears Roebuck and Company, they had rebuilt TD engines. They had all kinds of stuff. I remember talking to a guy who said he drove into a Sears and with a TD that needed an engine in the parking lot. He took the engine out. I apparently borrowed something from inside and wheeled the old engine in for the core charge, and wheeled the rebuilt engine out and put it in his car and drove away. Probably.
Hey, John, they used to buy them from a place on the south side of Chicago, and the name escapes me right now.
Wachowski.
No, it wasn't Wachowski. It was a little shop down further south.
J.C. Whitney?
No, very small. The name will come to me. When it comes to me, I'll speak up.
Yeah, I got to put that on a parts contest.
Because their big thing was rebuild Volkswagen engines.
Okay,
But they used to do the MG engines too, and they sold them to Sears.
interesting. How do you do that? You knew somebody that worked around there or something, or
Actually, I worked with a guy that one time worked for that company.
okay.
And plus I lived about 2 blocks from the place. I grew up about 2 blocks from the place, but
Okay.
let me give some thought here and I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Well, there's of course already in conversation here has come up J.C. Whitney. They sold parts for everything, and then they were part of Wachowski and Company too. One of them went broke. I left a lot of people. Hey, they'd already ordered their parts. It's like, yeah, we went broke, but we're continuing under a different name tomorrow. But your check is cashed, and we're not going to send you anything for it. Yeah, they sold a lot of stuff. You buy water pumps and fuel pumps and just another source of parts that was mail order across the United States, of course.
I'm trying to remember, John, and I was going to try to show a picture and it doesn't come out. But a lot of us have these wind wings on the side of our car. And I'm wanting to think, I should have looked before the meeting. I think mine are AMCO, but I'm not positive. I think they are though.
They made a whole series of those, and they also had the smoked, the greenish ones that
Right, that you can put on the top for sunscreen.
For the visor. Yep. Yeah.
How about start your engines?
Forgot about that.
Hey, John,
Yeah, Tony. We just lost Tony. He's muted himself. Anyway, back to start your engines. That was John. What was his name? Cosmedes worked for him, and Moss picked him up wholesale. I remember we stopped over there and purchased. I guess we just stopped. Carolyn and I stopped there on one of our East Coast tours. At Start Your Engines. Yep, and Eric Wilhelm came out of there. Eric Wilhelm, that did all the Moss catalogs, worked for John at Start Your Engines. Yeah.
here's
you,
your
John.
1982 catalog.
Oh, very cool.
Good.
All right, Bradley, thank you. Yep.
John, who was that?
Tony, go ahead.
Who was out of Tuxedo, New York? A place called Tuxedo, New York, or something like that.
Yeah, he worked on.
Yeah, that's M&G. That's M&G Vintage Auto.
I know. My mom bought me some parts for Christmas one time. I got a note on there. The guy talked to my mom like 25 minutes on the phone when she placed in the order. And he said, nice talking to you, Rita. Which I thought was kind of nice.
I think that was Tuxedo Motorsports on Route 17, but they recently closed down.
Could be, but wasn't, is there a Tuxedo Park?
Yes.
Well, there's a Tuxedo and a Tuxedo Park, two
Because
different
I think
communities.
M&G Vintage Auto is Tuxedo
Okay,
Park.
you might be right. I could be mistaken. So, but
Well-
John, why I have you, if I want to mail a check, I don't do PayPal. How do I mail it to you?
Oh, well, my address is on my website, but
All right, I'll find it then.
it's also, it's pretty easy. It's 100 East Beltline Avenue Southeast. You can Google me, you get 1,000 hits.
Okay.
100 East Beltline Avenue Southeast, Grand Rapids, Michigan, home of Gerald Ford. Oh, boy.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's very kind. Thank you.
John, here's the Sears catalog from
Oh, look at this.
1962,
Yeah.
Sears Automotive, and it's got that, you could get a TD engine from them for $569.95.
I had 4 fingers up. Okay, all right. I
Yep.
was off by 1 finger. Oh my gosh. Okay.
There it is.
Rebuilt in Chicago. Interesting. Okay. So there used to be 2 brothers in Phoenix that had 400 or 500 MGs that were scrapped. Anybody ever deal with them? I think the city finally expanded out to where it got to be an impediment. And I know I talked to Paul Deershaw at Sports Car Craftsman and said, hey, why don't you, talk to these guys? But the logistics and cost of moving all these vehicles up to Denver, from my perspective in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Phoenix and Denver look real close to each other, but I guess they're not. And
In Phoenix, we did run into a was a company. I bought an oil cooler from him like 8 o'clock in the evening. He opened up a shop, told me come up. He brought his pizza that he had just ordered and gave me an oil cooler. I don't think they're in business anymore. I wonder if that was the same one. Real nice guy.
well, there were a couple of shops in Phoenix. I used to see their sticker on some MGs that I serviced.
Was one of the first residents ever at Crowsdale. She's been here.
So I've got some background here. I'm just going to hit my mute all here just because I'm not sure. Okay, all right, we're back. So anyway.
How about Atlanta? Anybody know the place at Atlanta, Georgia? It was a boneyard and a repair restoration shop. And I went there not long before he retired, sold out, but
he had
nice
a bunch
guy.
of,
Highway. It was on Beuford Highway.
Okay.
That sounds
Okay.
familiar. Yeah.
that helps. That helps. And that's, and he had a bunch of buildings, some of which leaked when they rained.
Oh.
Remember that.
He also had a customer that had an Austin Healey. Every 300,000 miles, he would bring his Austin Healey 3000 in to have it rebuilt. Had 900,000 miles on it.
Hey.
It was beats me.
Okay, very cool. What about Ye Old MG Shop? In Florida. He just passed away about 6 years ago. Oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. I got a picture of him. Him and me standing together. He was pretty old, about 7 years ago. The Ye Old MG Shop. A lot of these guys were resellers for Moss. And some of them sourced the stuff themselves. Then there's modern places. They're like brand new upstarts, like from the frame up in
I
Phoenix.
was just going to say Doug Belton's got a great place and a
He just
really amazing catalog.
within, I think he's how long has he been going? About 10 years, I think, and he's the preeminent TC supplier in the world. So the point is, you can do it. It's a small market, but you can do it. So I don't know how much Moss stuff he resells. I haven't a clue, but I know that everything you get from him is really nice, So
He's a very good replacement water pump for the T-Series that I put on mine, and it just made a world of difference.
Okay,
Hey, John, I just dug this out from my archives from '93.
all right, you're a University Motors graduate. Okay, all right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Those are good times.
Those are good times. Well, this is a walk down memory lane tonight.
Excuse
So,
me, John.
yeah,
I was in and out. I'm sorry I didn't get to hear it, the whole part. Did you mention Dave Zip in Ohio? He's passed.
he did, and he was more of a mechanic, wasn't he? Or did he sell a lot of parts?
He was a Moss reseller. When you said Moss reseller, when I
Okay.
was in Indiana, I knew him. Knew
Sure.
of-
Yeah, he was right out there doing it too. He went on with the New England MGT register. He went on the ocean to ocean deal, and he was in one of the cars at the end, and when somebody broke down or had a problem, he was right there fixing stuff. So.
And John, I don't know how long he's been around, but there's Jeff at Little British Car Company, and he's very active, puts together tours and all kind of stuff, and
He
is a
does.
Moss reseller and very helpful.
Yep. He's been going since about 1996, maybe. Jeff Zorn out of Detroit.
Zorn, I couldn't think of it.
Yeah, he was for a short time. He worked for who were the first people with the first email addresses? You've got mail.
AOL or Pandora?
AOL. Yeah, he was doing something with AOL because he came up to a tech seminar so long ago, probably around 96, just after Tony was there. Yeah, although Tony's been there a number of times.
He winters in Florida, over in the
Yes.
Tampa area, but he still has somebody up in Michigan doing parts out of the warehouse all the time.
Yep, he bought a house across the street from him when the housing prices plummeted in like 2008. Now I think he ships out of there. It's almost a residential address. I think. I'm not sure, but yeah, he's been involved for a long time, and he runs those tours to England. So does Tony out of Ohio.
And speaking of my,
Burgess, yeah.
speaking of my Indianapolis connections and Kurkowski's, who also winter in Florida, I saw on NAMGAR that Laura has passed.
Yes, I just saw that too. So Jack used to work part-time, kind of sort of fun for Bob Connell, Connell's MG service. But you could go in there and buy things, but he wasn't set up to do mail orders, stuff like that. But yeah, Connell's MG service. Jack worked there. Adrian's a nurse. He worked there. So I think part of it's still open. Bob's pretty infirm.
Dave Mack out of Cleveland, Ohio. He's passed away, but just a nice guy. He one of his employees saying they were bleeding the brakes. He's working the pedal and no answer. He fell asleep. He said, "You don't wake the boss up. You just go do something else." And he eventually passed away.
He came up to a summer party, Dave Mack, with an MGA, and the thing was running like lean all the way up to Grand Rapids, just hesitating and like pulling a trailer, running into a headwind. And they came in on Sunday, so this must have been in the 80s, earlier 80s. I always had the shop open on Sunday to help people get their cars fixed so they could get home again. And Dave says, "Well, here's what we've done, and we changed the points, we set the timing," and he goes through all these things. And I said, "Well, here, let's just check this." And I unscrewed from the MGA, the dump tubes off the top of the float bowls, put my lips around the banjo and blew through them. One of them was plugged up. And I said, "Well, there's the problem." And Dave Mack was just incredulous. He said, "How in the world did you come up with that?" He said, I pulling my hair out. And I said, "Well, you told me what you did. You did everything I do, except you didn't do that." So I tried that first, the thing you didn't do. So yeah, Dave was a nice guy.
Yeah, he also refused to touch a German or Japanese car because of World War II. He was still holding a grudge.
Okay.
But I wouldn't touch one either.
His name was about 17 consonants long too. It wasn't, his last name wasn't MACK. That's what he had on his business card, but it was I don't think it was Scottish either. It was a real long name. Anyway. Yeah.
Interesting man.
Yeah. Then there was Jim Udkler down way in the south of Texas, who sold used parts. MG Cosas, COSAS. And then there was another place out of Texas called TAMGO. And the Texas Area MG Organization, something like that. And he made a heavy run at it and just couldn't make it pay. It's a tough road, that mail order. You just got to be the right, you got to have real thick skin, because when you send somebody a wrong part and they call you up and tell you that you ruined their daughter's wedding, because the guy should have ordered the front suspension bolts 6 months ago, not 2 days before the wedding, trying to get it done. But anyway, you got to have pretty thick skin, because people can get pretty irate. On the other hand, people are great. And so I talked about Todd Clark in the information there. And Todd from British Miles bought everything that Todd Clark had, but I'm not sure that he's set up or going to make all the number plates that Todd Clark used to make, or all the little fancy MGA brackets, or all the stuff that he made that was specifically for MGA. And I mentioned in the mailer that I sent out too about Jeff Burns, paleontologist, I think, who ran Motorhead. And oh my gosh, I looked around I've got several books of matches. They're green, so he was already on board for that green stuff. And they said, one side said Motorhead, and the other said world peace through British cars.
I remember on the back of their catalog, there's a question that says, what about Fiats? And the answer was, what about Fiats?
I don't have a copy of his catalog anymore. I had all those things and I sold them at my big auction in 2009. I had catalogs that went all the way. I had 2 Sadek Automotive catalogs, and I sent one to Pete Cosmides because he was the one that put it together. So
yeah, I go to a guy way up on a mountain here in Shutesbury, Mass, Jeff Rogers Motors. He does a tidy little business buying, selling, and bartering old British car parts. His buddy, who does the mechanical work, used to build them in Abington, and he also built the Alvis. So I figure that's a good provenance. His parts depot, his secondary parts depot, is this line of old wrecked British cars going up the side of the hill behind his barn. But you get the parts.
That's pretty like today, the weather would be pretty miserable there, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Yes, it has been. Yep. At least he wouldn't be flooded out. He's on the top of the hill.
Okay. Well, that's the nice thing about those brothers out so long ago in Phoenix, or Paul Deershaw in Denver. The stuff doesn't seem to rust. It must rust somehow. But gosh, Judd, you got Tom Lang's his card up there. Tom Lange, Lange. He pronounces it the proper German way. He and I were each our first business partners in MG repair in 1971 when he was going to school in Kalamazoo. So that's how long we've both been in the trade. He stepped out for a while and was an antiquarian librarian at the Huntington Library in Pasadena, or just south of Pasadena. So
another one, and I don't know that he's actually in business, but he's he's on some of the forums and he's a great source. Is and I can't pronounce it correctly, Hugh Petit or Petty or Pite. Anyway, he has used parts and some very strange parts for mostly T series, but some later ones. And I've bought a few things from him. They've always been good.
Okay. Moss had a rebuilding program so many years. They tried it, didn't work. Out of South Carolina, they had a plant there, and their goal either, you know, just in the head, it's like, well, every engine that comes in, we'll just pour it 20 and you know, put rings and grind the crank 20 and send it back out the door. But it didn't work out. Floyd, what was his last name? He was in charge of that project.
You remember Victoria British? Of course, they're part of Moss now.
Yeah. Well, Leo Long started Long's British Parts. And then the word on the street was that there was some trouble with the USPS. Used to be, maybe it still is. Moss didn't have everything, and stuff would be on back order, and they would keep your money. You know, that was your choice to let them in. Leo Long copied Moss, the business model. And I don't know whether someone got mad. That was the word on the street. Was somebody got mad and turned him into the USPS. They wanted their money back, and Leo couldn't send it. So he was banned from doing business for a while under his own name. So that's when he started. He got with somebody else, British Restoration Parts, in Kansas City. And all of that Leo had the touch, you know, and all of that blew up, and so they were doing gangbuster business, and then finally Leo got to be able to get his operation going again. And his first wife, he married a couple of times. His first wife did all those sort of Aubrey Beardsley-esque line drawings of the women on the front pages of the catalog. And Leo passed away, oh my gosh, what, 15 years ago? That many? Something like that. And they sell truck parts. That was what they morphed into, and it's a huge business. I don't maybe it's called Long's Part. I don't know what it's called, but it's probably not British Victoria Truck Parts.
No, there's Long Motor Corporation.
Yes, that revived. Yep. I remember standing at the first annual Kansas City British Car Show, which must have been 80 or 81. Leo wasn't a very tall guy, and he was standing at the bar, and he'd been knocking down drinks all afternoon, you know, and he was hollering that he was going to restart Long Motors again. And, you know, he did it. He did real well. Did very, very well.
Yeah, I think I left. Yeah, I think I left the impression that Jeff Rogers sells nothing but second, third, and fourth hand parts. He does that too. He once said that there's nothing that can't be improved without a sandblaster. But he and his wife spend a couple of weeks in England every year, and they come back with a couple of Connexes full of new old stock.
And this is New Hampshire?
Massachusetts, Western Mass, Shutesbury. Okay. Yes, there is a Shutesbury, New Hampshire too. We Yankees are very, very very cheap on the names for our towns. We keep reusing them.
So who's the guy in John? Geez, they're all named John. He sold parts out of Massachusetts. Having a hard time. Can't get there. So anyway,
I'm not sure that I know of any others.
There's Bonaducci, Mike Bonaducci. He's up in Vermont now, but he sells all kinds of mostly Triumph stuff, but he also does some MG stuff too. And he was buying out leftover stock from closed garages and things. So he's still selling parts.
See, when you do that, you end up with all the parts that don't sell.
Are you familiar with Jay Rittenauer, MG Center out of Talmadge, Ohio? They sold a building off from under him, so he he retired for the second time. He's still around tinkering and doing things
Okay.
in his mid to late 80s, and a super nice guy. He was a Victoria British distributor.
Okay, all right.
And then there's British Central out of Yakima, Washington. And they're no longer in business. Jim and Rocky, the husband and wife team. They were great people, really good people. Put us on a website once.
There's always been somebody up there that's got a pretty big operation. What's the place up there right now? I get, it's not British Parts Northwest. It's a lot of people buy.
Northwest Imports.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they're all, you spin the wheel, you know, it's only got a couple names on it. You spin the wheel and just rearrange the words. Whatever happened to Fastback? Who was Fastback?
They
It's
were
still-
out of Portland, Oregon, and they
Yeah,
were
they're still there, I think.
well, they're a Moss,
Okay,
but they were in an old. When I bought something there, they were in an old fire station, kind of a quaint place.
They had a wrecking yard in a building, and everything was up on big iron shelving. They take a forklift and lift the car down, take a part off, and put it back up. And I got a generator from them for my Midget back in 1978, I think.
were you in the Navy or what?
No, before I went in the Navy.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's the other one I couldn't think of, British Car Service in Atlanta, Barry Rosenberg. He retired early. He was the one I think I was telling you, he went to school to be a bridge builder, and he bought his TR4 and nobody would work on it, so he taught himself. And then he became British Car Repair, Restoration, and Boneyard.
Barry still does it.
Todd Clark was Todd Clark Spares and Restoration until he had two cars one summer, and they both of them, customer relations didn't work, and so he at that point he sort of always joked and said he dropped the restoration out of his name because he wasn't gonna do that. So any other places anybody's ever dealt with in the near or far past?
John, how about the Roadster factory?
Sure. Well, they're operational. Absolutely. They're there today. Matter of fact, I talked to Jim Pastor today, and he said he'd driven up there today, as a matter of fact. Yep, Charles Runyon. So I gotta use the mute all because we got some background noise here, but yeah, yep. And Charles died maybe 2-3 years ago, and his one son is taking it over and doing it.
Does anybody remember Dobie out of Southern California? They sold Mustang, Capri, and MG parts. First Miller place, and they're something else now, but they started pretty small, and
They sell suspension parts now,
yeah.
Okay.
or all sorts of cars. But
Well, there's O'Connor Classic out of California. They had a real thing going, and the guy tried to put together a museum. And the one thing they came up with, which Moss still sells, is a shortened lever for the sump on a T-type, so that your clutch pedal stroke is easier. It's easier on the foot.
What about the guy from Pandora, Ohio?
Ted Shoemaker.
He's
Ted,
still
yes.
there.
Yeah. He comes to our show every once in a while.
Yep. Yep.
I know Jack Smittle from the Ohio Tea Registry used to sell parts, used parts, as Old Farts Auto Parts. My wife thought that was fantastic.
OFAP. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very nice. His son's on here often.
Yep.
Hey, John,
Yes.
is there anybody out there that sells used old parts?
Lots of people. Half the people we've mentioned right now do, but my go-to place is Sports Car Craftsman in Denver, Colorado, because there's just no muss or fuss. I mean, you call them, they'll tell you right away if they've got it, and they'll tell you how much it's going to be, and then they send it to you in a box, and then you send them a check.
Hey, John.
It works. Yes.
Why is some company in Colorado the premier when you think of all the MGs that are on the East Coast? Here we have Denver. Is it the dry climate, all the good?
It's a combination of two things. It's the dry climate and it's Paul Deershow. So Paul was involved with Scotland Yard before. Why are there so many? He's got a couple of hundred cars that are in various stages of disassembly. But for instance, I wanted an anti-sway bar for a midget, and I thought, well, I could order all the stuff new, but sway bar is a sway bar, nothing goes wrong with it. So I ordered one from him, and it came as a package. I mean, it came with a it was a real nice job. It was all cleaned up, and it came with brackets, and it was nice dealing with them. And then they don't charge your charge card. I said, how does this work? And he goes, well, pretty well. Almost everybody. He'll tell you everybody, but help me out. But he must
Name of the business again?
People on the books that haven't sent a check yet. But
Name that business again, John. Name that business.
Sports Car Craftsman, CRAFTSMEN. Paul's retired. Although he's still around, you can't retire from this business. And Ian works there now, but there's some other people there too. But it just, if you got, like if you're looking for the surround for a 71 MGB grill, they don't have them either, but they've got lots and lots and lots of stuff. They do, and some stuff you want new. If you're going to buy rings or bearings, duh, you're going to buy new stuff. But some stuff, some stuff's just fine. A used or reused row style wheel, yours gets all bent up or something. Hey, so anyway.
So this guy,
got to be half the people on this call probably have used parts for sale.
but
John,
John,
I need a sending unit.
Don Bueller, you were on. You were asking about what?
yeah, I was. So this guy is from Scotland Yards.
Well, he and a couple other people were Scotland Yard in Denver, Colorado. And then, it was a partnership, and lots of partnerships don't work. So it didn't work. And so I think Paul went to Australia maybe for a year and came back and couldn't leave the trade. He just got right back into it.
Yeah, I really want to know about him because I'm out in Salt Lake, and every time I've called him, his group, it might have been Ian actually that was very helpful.
Yeah, you can call them up and don't waste your time. Don't ask them. If you're going to waste somebody's time, call me, because I'm not still working for a living.
Yeah. Thanks
for technical, but yeah, and there's lots of other people around too. Bob and Gloria out of Ohio, they've got their Team Triumph people there, and that guy's got good. I mean, lots of people have got used stuff, but
he's got a building and a half full of used catalog parts. Plus, he's a Moss distributor. Yeah. But I had to use Sports Car Craftsman. I couldn't get a hold of my friend in Warren, but they were really easy to deal with. I just would not believe they'd send you the parts and you send them a check. It took me a couple of days to get the check to him. I called him up and said, yeah, you've heard this before, but the check's in the mail. But he said, nobody stiffed them. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
Hey, John?
Yes.
Are they sports car have T parts?
Not so much, Skip. But I mean, I'll say it just a phone call. And it's maybe he knows maybe he refers all his T questions to somebody else. So
You're
you're
stupid little part, and I can't find it.
you're a member of the New England MGT register yet?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, then in the back of there, you got Tom Long on, and he's a just LANGE, Half Moon Farm, someplace in Maine. And he makes stuff, and he also owns a TB, so he can speak TB with you. He owns every single, he owns all of them, the TA, TB, TC, TD, and TF.
wow.
John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Gary Greenspoon in Victoria.
Yeah.
Hey, so I joined your session a little bit late. Did anybody mention Octagon in Vancouver?
No, because we're pretty focused on the continental United States, but Octagon, okay.
Yeah, so they supplied my parts and many people's parts in Canada. Unfortunately, they don't do parts anymore. That they still have a garage, I do believe.
Okay, all right.
But I have an ancillary question. Regarding my coolant, I think my coolant. First of all, how frequently should my coolant be changed?
No, totally changed once every 5 years.
And what do you mean by totally changed?
Drained out,
Yeah.
drained out, flushed, and new stuff in.
Okay, and the other question is, if I'm going to change it, if it needs changing, because I store my car for 4 months over the winter, uninsured, should I drain it and wait until spring to fill it?
No.
I'm thinking of the corrosion aspect of it. So
I don't know all of that, but I do know that water pumps dry out.
Oh, the water pump. Okay, fine. No problems. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Gary.
Good seeing you.
So who else has got another firm that they can think of that we haven't mentioned that might be fun to talk about?
Yeah, John.
Yeah.
This is Dave in Madison, Wisconsin. It's not a parts house, but Chris Beebe used to run foreign car specialists in Madison. They're a fixture on Regent Street for literally decades. He is out of business now, but he's still around and still active in a lot of different foreign cars.
Okay.
Anybody upper Midwest has probably met him or dealt with him in the past. I first ran into him in very early 70s.
Okay. Oh my gosh. All right.
The Clan Burns in Germany is one place to check. He makes parts that are better than originally used, and he's got a good following.
Okay. What's that name again, John?
The Clan Burns.
Byrnes?
No, Burns.
Oh.
Yeah,
Simple.
Declan.
Okay.
Declan.
Very nice. Okay, and I'm sorry, but I cut Don Bueller off, was asking about a sending unit earlier. What were you asking about getting a used sending unit?
No, not me, John.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. It was someone.
John, hi, this is Doug.
Yeah, Doug.
You mentioned earlier on the MG Mitten company, I think, and I have an MG Mitten car cover. I bought it from someone about 5 years ago. It's really heavy flannel. It's only an interior car cover. If I were to cover the car outside and it would rain, the thing would weigh an absolute ton to remove and take forever to dry out because it's flannel lined underneath with a flannel lining. And it says on the front MG Mitten. And I also have a Evian Spares catalog here from 1988, illustrated T-type for Evian Spares. Good illustrations. I mean, here's the inside of the cover page, the engine, and Moss Motors TC TD April 1979, but this is the 10th printing from September of '88. Moss Motors, yeah. So I don't know, maybe you'll see one day, they see these on that, television show, what's it called? The Antiques Roadkill, I mean Roadshow, sorry, Roadshow, sorry. So, yeah, but yeah, that MG Mitten, car cover is pretty nice, but like I said, it's very heavy. It's flannel, so indoor use only. You don't want to get that thing wet. It takes forever to dry out.
Oh my gosh.
What about
There's
Jeff, the distributor guy? Jeff Schwimmer?
Jeff Schlemmer, yeah.
Schlemmer, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then, was it
Worldwide Imports in Madison, Wisconsin. Those
Yeah,
are
these are all still in business though.
those are in business, and they don't sell part. I mean, they sell, the distributor rebuilds or rebuild shocks and stuff like that. Apple Hydraulics rebuilds shocks and carburetors and so forth. Joe Curto's been around a long time. Don Bridger, MG Bits and Spares, Azalea Lane, Jonesboro, Arkansas. He's no spring chicken. I bet he's 85, 86. And he still has thousands of parts, but there's no way.
I think he was selling on eBay at one time.
Okay, but it's logistically, I don't think he's doing that anymore. I mean, it's just too hard for him to do it.
Yeah.
There's also Tom Ball out of Ohio that does
no, he's not answering the phone. I
just talked to him last year, so he might have.
Well, that's last year.
Last year.
I tried 2 weeks ago, and the word around is that no one knows exactly what's going on. But there's one of the Bedinskys also rebuilds fuel pumps. Not Rob Bedinsky, who's the British Vacuum Unit. But I think maybe his cousin. They're all related to George from M&G Vintage Auto.
I'll talk to Scott out of Team Triumph, and he gets his
I'd like to know
pumps out of Tom Ball, and he'll probably let me know.
I'd like to know.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Thanks.
Hey, John.
Yes.
I mentioned sending unit.
Okay. Oh, wait.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I put a new gas tank in. So I bought a new sending unit from Moss. Not thinking that I should have kept the old sending unit. You had mentioned you could send those out and get rebuilt, right?
Most of them are pretty easily rebuildable, yes.
So anyway, the one from Moss doesn't work right. So then I bought a better one from what I understand is supposed to be a better one from British, I forgot the name of the company. Anyway.
Tom at British Miles.
British Miles. So I put that in. I fill it up with gas. Goes to fill. I can drive for say 100 miles. It never moves.
Oh, you got good mileage there, Guido.
Yeah. So then I stop to get a cup of coffee. I get in the car and boom, it goes to 3/4. It jumps to increments. I don't understand why it does that. The other day it went down to empty, and I said, it's probably not working. But I said, I better go get gas. I had a half a gallon of gas in the car. So good thing I went and got gas over them on the side of the road. So what do you think? What's doing that?
Well, if it's jumpy, maybe it's sticky. You can take it back out again, order up a new seal and ring, and wait until you're down to just a couple gallons next time. Jack it up on the right-hand side so gasoline all sloshes over on the left, and take that thing back out and work it. You can take the cover off it. There's a little blade that follows a resistor wire, which is all wrapped around a little piece of like mica. It's not mica, but
right.
And just bend it so it's making better contact. That's all.
I checked it with an old meter.
Well, yeah, but
it was brand new out of the package. But so what do I look at?
It is a new one. Okay, all right.
Yeah. So That's why I wanted to see if I could locate a used one.
Yeah, well, somebody's
have
got
it
one. Yeah,
and
someone's
just-
got one, and it'll work better probably, as long as it works. It'll work better than the newer ones. When you look inside on that strip, which has got all this resistance wire wrapped around it that the blade follows. When you look at the original one, it's got like 300 windings, and you look at a new one, it's got 30. Okay, so it gets hung up. It gets hung up on the individual wires. So the original Smiths ones were a lot better. But they fail too. The wire breaks in them, and then they don't work, or the float becomes a sink, but you can buy a new float. So
You think I should try this sports car Craftsman and see if he has an original one?
yeah, sure. You know, he may argue with you, what are you doing? Or he may help you out too. So sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hey, Guido, if
Yes.
Sportsman Crafts doesn't help you out, there's a guy by the name of Basil Adams in California that carries the old original ones.
Basil Adams. You have a number?
I
He's
will,
on the
I'll send
MG
you,
Experience.
check
Here,
the comments section. I'll send you his email.
Yeah, he's on the MG Experience. You can find him there.
Where is he?
Basil Adams under the MGBs.
MG Experience.
MG Experience.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
His telephone number is 707
Oh, wow.
762 0974.
Thank you.
Basil holds a PhD in chemistry.
Hey. Yeah. Well, Jeff Burns was a paleontologist. Charles Runyon was a librarian. So yeah, there's a lot of people that and about half of the people involved in the British car trade are musicians. Literally, I'm not. But it's just uncanny. I mean, it really, really is. So.
Hey,
John,
Guido,
John, the
Basil's email address is basiladams@yahoo.com.
Okay. Thank you.
Very easy.
John, the new gas tanks, like the Moss tank I bought, are they different from the original with the baff? Somebody said maybe it's because of the baffles. I don't know what it looks. I don't know what it looks like inside.
Apparently, the new ones don't have baffles. So then the question is why have baffles at all? Is it to keep the back end of the car from surging left and right or fore and aft when you stop with a partially full tank? Is it to protect the arm on the sending unit? Or is it to cut back on noise? Or a combination of all those? I don't know, but none of them have it. Doesn't seem to be a problem.
Okay.
I bought a new 16-gallon tank from IB. It's also got a drain plug, which some of them that you buy don't. But I can go over 400 miles before I have to stop for gas. I got to stop for other things, but it's really great having 16 gallons.
One warning on the new tanks is if you buy one, install it right away and test it, because I found several of the new tanks have an internal leak on the pickup tube, if it's that type of tank, and it's not welded all the way through or whatever. So it might work on the first half a tank and then fail, or it might not work at all, even from just having a gallon of fuel in there. So make sure you test it right away so you can return it if it's not working right.
Hey, John.
We have had that problem in my shop. Yeah, Mike.
Yes, sir. 2 years ago from British Parts Northwest, I bought a gas tank for my 72, and they had a choice between baffled and unbaffled. I think the baffled was $10 more. It's British Parts Northwest, part number NRP4B, and it is baffled.
NRP, that's okay. That's for what year model?
70 to 75, and I got it from British Parts Northwest. It is baffled. At the time, it was $10 more.
Okay. That's a factory number, NRP too. Yeah, very cool.
Yep.
And
Works great. Works great. Doesn't leak.
So Bill Waterstrat sent me a text and said the engine rebuilder on the south side of Chicago that rebuilt the XPAG engines for Sears was called Top Line, TOPLINE. That's a little bit of I'm learning some stuff here. This is why I'm doing this tonight. I want to know this stuff. If I wanted a whole lot of people on tonight, we would have done how to tune your carburetors, and then I get over 200 people. But tonight we're setting, I don't know what we set, probably around 135 or something, probably at our peak. I'm going to go over to the chat section now.
Could I mention another place?
Oh, please,
John. There's a place in Seattle, Washington called booksforcars.com, and you can get a lot of old MG shop manuals, original ones, driver's manuals, glove compartment manuals, and general books. So it's a really good source for old shop manuals.
Remember the place that we
Books for Cars.
Booksforcars.com. So
are in class.
it's BOOKS and then the numeral 4, then cars.com.
Dash European, I think it was what I was looking at.
Bob and Gloria, you're not muted.
Oh,
well, that's right. You weren't having an argument, so it didn't get there.
Sorry.
John, before you move on, I want to mention something from the way back in the past. Anglo Parts out of Belgium.
Yeah.
Had the best catalog I've ever seen in my life. Do you remember that?
I do, but that's from the 80s, maybe?
Yeah, I think they passed them out at one of the nationals, the MJ Nationals.
Okay.
The artwork in there and everything was just fabulous.
I remember Anglo. I just sort of assumed they were still there, but
they still are.
Okay.
They're still in business. They've been in business for 40 years.
I know they made the metal parts that they had for MGAs, like the sills and the pillar assemblies were made a little more exactingly than some other people make them, and they fit better. Remember people talking about that, because those MGA sills, those are real dicey. When you buy them, they don't always fit like they're supposed to.
Another quality manufacturer of metal parts is Kilmartin in Australia. They just changed hands, but apparently the people who bought them are still making the quality sheet metal parts for MGAs.
Okay.
Yeah, Kilmartin.
Thank you. I'm going to switch now over to the chat section, and we'll get some real Q&A stuff here. Let's see. This is from Sandy Bedinsky. I'm finishing up my TD steering rack project and now need inner ball seat shims. No, you don't. Let me explain what to do. All I found available are some made of some kind of plastic, and that ain't gonna work. So anyway, they have to be really, really highly torqued. Yes. So the way that Sandy, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm right here, John.
Okay. Have you got yours apart yet?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. That's usually the hard part. You can either lap the back side of the hemisphere on a piece of paper to make it tighter, to make the ball joint tighter, okay. Or you can take the little tiny disc the size of a nickel, the one with the concave side to it, and you can scrub that on paper to make that thinner, to get it looser. So you just keep working those back and forth until you get it to where you want it. Where do you want it? You want it to be able to turn and have full articulation, but not have any in and out movement.
So they say it's supposed to stay up by itself with the tie rod end on it and not fall down?
I wouldn't say so, no.
Just so long as it doesn't do this.
Yeah, you don't want it banging, yeah. Yeah.
So we don't need shims. We're just gonna lap these parts together.
Yep, and what we used to do is to take the tie rod, chuck that up in the lathe, take the hemisphere, whatever you want to call it, and put lapping compound on the inner tie rod and move that thing around while it's spinning, and it'll lap itself in, and because sometimes you can end up with it pretty ridged.
I use valve lapping compound.
Yeah. Yes. Valve lapping compound, yep.
All right, well, that's very interesting instructions. I'm gonna give that a try right away.
Well, then you don't have to screw on with the shims. And every time you tighten it up, the shims splay out, and the only way we could get them tight enough was with a pipe wrench. Horrid. I mean, we never made a special tool for them, but just a pipe wrench works great. But then you're left with all these marks on it. So that means that when it's all back together and all set to go, you chuck it up in the lathe for the final time and put some paper on it and smooth it out so it doesn't cut into the inside of your rack.
Thank you, John.
Hey, midgets have the same horrid inner tie rod end as T-types and A's do. By the time you get to an MGB, there's a spring there. Oh my gosh, and that's great. Till the spring breaks. You can't buy the spring, but you can buy a used one from lots of places probably.
Thank you.
Okay. So David says, John, I was there in 68. You were where? At Moss at 5775 Dawson Avenue, Goleta, California. So, oh, Ruth Arnold. Yeah, Larry Rupp. What happened to him? That is the question. That is the question. Rupp was always out there. Ruth, are you still on? Must be she's gone. There are many of us who remember Larry Rupp, and all of a sudden he was gone. And the last thing I heard about Larry Rupp was from Hank Rippert, who said that Larry Rupp called him and he was in a real rush. And he says, I can only be on the phone for, he gave it a certain amount of time, 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And, and Hank says, where's anyone on a payphone today except in prison? So I mean, I shouldn't hurl such aspersions, but no one knows. Larry Rupp.
John, David said he was 3 in 1968, not there, 3.
Oh. Well, hey, we got good. I was 3. Oh, all right. Very nice.
I was born in 1968.
I was serving in the U.S. Army at Fort Knox in 1968. So I was watching television when Robert Kennedy was shot, having just won the presidential primary in California, when Pat Brown, Jerry Brown's father, lost. So anyway.
Hey, John, Gary here again.
Yeah.
John, were you smart enough at Fort Knox to leave with any souvenirs?
No, I did drive in one time. I drove in. I've got a picture of my TD. I drive my MG, and they had these great big loudspeakers, and it was like, we're not fooling around. It was like, state your business, and I just waved and backed out. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Doug Miller. I've replaced the rebound straps on my 80B. By observation, it looks pretty straightforward. Yeah, you got to get the bolts off there. That's the hard thing. And then, you'd want to replace them with some rubber straps, of course, because they limit the upward motion of the body off the axle. And you want something that doesn't just, why not just put a piece of chain there? You know, the strap is ever so slightly better than a chain. The rubber ones are great if you could get good rubber ones, but I don't know where you can get good rubber rear axle straps. I remember we got them from a major supplier one time at the shop, and you should be able to put them on and not have the leaf springs on the car and have those support the weight of the rear axle. And the one we saw that it was going to fail, so we got out a stopwatch that lasted 22 seconds. Snapped. Anyway, I would use the rubber ones if anyone can recommend good ones, but if not, you have to go with the fiber ones.
Yeah, the nylon straps work really well.
But they don't have any give to them.
Don't need to have any give.
Rubber ones used to have, because they were like those old John Bull radiator hoses. It was you could see the mesh of the fabric through the rubber, but no one's been able to come up with those, I guess. So here we go. Mr. Curl says easy fix. Make sure you wire brush or 24 grit sandpaper the bar that the strap's attached to. It makes it much easier to install. Absolutely. And some of the straps have got a sleeve in them too. So. And then we've got here's my snail mail address. Mr. Curl says, enjoy the trip down memory lane. My 190 SL has a Sears top. Have a great Christmas. So anyway, oh, he's got to go to a barbershop quartet thing. So, so Jeff Burns, Ruth Arnold's talking about Jeff Burns. Jeff was the best guy. I miss him. So Peter here says, on a 1500 motor, front and rear quart gaskets for the bearing caps, how much should the gasket protrude above the surface? 1/16 of an inch, and if that, about the same thickness as the gasket is that goes around. That technique of pushing the gaskets in between the main cap and the front and rear engine bearing plates on the B series engines, MGAs and MGBs, that's old school. And you can trim those down pretty thinly now. You want them to stand proud, but turn them down thinly, and then use either the right stuff or ultra black on there, and that'll make it real good.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Chuck Linick, the Winner's Circle in Cleveland, Ohio. Actually, it was in Lakewood. Actually, it was in Lakewood, I think. Spridger, Dave Georgie, is he still trading, or did he? Oh, he finally retired. Yep. Okay. Yeah, he sold a whole lot of race car stuff, wasn't it? Mainly, I mean, half shafts that didn't break, stuff like that. For, I don't have a good audio connection with you, Chuck.
Yeah.
So. Chris, to everybody, is there a list anywhere of all these businesses? Not yet, but that's why we were collecting them. You know, somebody's got to write a book about. It'd just be so much fun, you know. And I had a customer who had a complete set of road and tracks, and when he passed away, I got those, and then I in turn sold them. But I always thought I was going to go through there and just look in the back, because if you end up with a sterling silver ashtray or a grab bar on your TD or anything that's unusual and you haven't seen one quite like it, if you look in the back of Road and Track, you can find an ad for it. There were all these people who had these little cottage industries and were making stuff in their basement. So that was but I never did that. That's
Hey, John.
Huge project. Yeah.
John, I have a list that's called Vendors List, and I'm saying I got it off your website some years ago.
Well, yes, those are current vendors if you want to find somebody who's doing stuff, but a trip down memory lane, that list, no. But
Okay.
yes, I do have a list of current vendors that we used to use at University Motors, the White Post Restorations and yeah, all the people that Tom Ball for fuel pumps, but now nobody can get in touch with Tom. So it's those lists change all the time. But thanks, I do have that up.
John, I did post our resources page and listed some of the ones, and I've been keeping notes today, so I'll start on that old list too.
Okay. All right, I'll work with you on that.
Okay.
Right. So Don Morgan says we had Drake Motors in Kelowna, Canada for years. Good selection of new and used.
Hey, John, that's Kelowna.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, Kelowna. I see it now. Yep. Phil Morgan. Anybody ever deal with Continental Auto Parts in Havertown, PA? Continental Auto Parts. I don't know them. And we didn't talk about British Auto Parts, BAP or Geon, Geon, and then they combined Geon, and then they were bought out by World Parts. So
Okay,
yeah,
John.
yes.
On that list, he's on this call. I think Barney's on his MG Guru has a huge list of all kind of states. I looked up the Beehive on it and a couple of other places. So I know that list exists, and some of them say they're not there anymore, and some of them say they're still there.
So Barney Gaylord's site, mgaguru.com. You wouldn't find it unless you were looking for MGA stuff, maybe, but it's got a lot of really good stuff. And one of the things on there are service shops. And Barney and Elliot drive all over these United States, and they visit all these places. And there's lines through them that when they're closed or they're not nice or they don't want to work on MGs anymore. So Barney's got those lined out, but yeah, he's got I don't know, hundreds of places organized by state.
1,100. 1,100.
Oh my gosh, very cool, Barney. Where are you tonight? You look cold.
We are in Jacksonville, Florida tonight.
You look cold. Is it cool down there or what?
It's cool inside.
Oh, all right. Okay. Okay. All right.
I wanted to say I enjoy reading Barney's travels, and he goes to places that used to be in business but aren't, and he gives an explanation. I really enjoy reading that. Barney, thank you.
Yeah, Barney's
we drove for 4 years and 160,000 miles to go and visit 1,100 shops for photos and pictures.
Very cool. It's very cool. It's a resource that my guess is lots of other car aficionados do not have. I mean, is there a Barney Gaylord in the world of Mustangs? I don't know, or Heelys for that matter. So Phil Calura stepped away for a while. You might have already mentioned a company in Westchester, New York that rebuilt gauges. I think it began with an N. So it was pronounced two different ways, Nisonger or Nisinger. I always called it Nisinger myself, but anyway, Peter runs that, and they had that last big storm surge that went through New York City about 4 years ago, got all of his Smith gauges for MGs. So they still do work, but I don't think they do MG work anymore. And so I've been sending people to West Valley Instruments. But there's also MoMA, and there's also John Wolfe in Ohio. There isn't just one place around.
There's British Speedo service in Goldens Bridge, New York.
Okay, did they take over for Neisinger or something? Or?
They say they did. Some of them worked for Neisinger.
Oh, all right, okay.
They have a website. It's britishspeedo.com.
Okay, thank you. And they're not selling men's tiny underwear. I'm sorry. Okay, British.
I don't think so.
BritishSpeedo.com. All right. Okay, thanks. Yeah, okay, funny. Now, let's see, Doug to everybody. I bought a Bimini top for my MGC tour at the MGC convention in 2013. It was made by Ed Kirkland out of Tallahassee. I think I paid $200 for it. I think he still makes them. I just heard somebody say that the normal supplier for MGA Bimini tops wasn't making them or something. Most of the stuff is cottage industries. So when someone's thumbs fail them, then they're out of business, you know.
John?
Yes.
They ain't $200 anymore. They're like 500.
Okay.
Yeah. But somebody had it at the international, had one at the international show in Harris in Atlantic City.
Okay.
And the guy told me who to call, and I called the guy. He said, "Oh, I paid about 200." Well, I called them. They're up to 500 now.
You can cut the side. You can cut the sides of your old rag top off for that.
Yeah, right. Put a towel over my head.
Oh, Ed Cook. I'm pretty sure I bought my YA from Skip Kelsey at Shade Tree Motors, or from his daughter. If I understood the story at the time, I didn't know who he was until I looked into the document. So Skip had his house. I think he's a retired policeman. His house was filled with T-type parts. And if you'd call Moss, you know, and you're looking for a lay gear for a T-type gearbox, the salesman said, "No, we're out of stock right now." I said, "Oh my God, oh my gosh, I got a customer. What am I gonna do?" And they'd say, "Call Skip Kelsey," and Skip might have one. Just so he didn't do the same kind of volume that Moss did, of course. So Marty's got a place in here for Anglo parts. Put that in Kilmartin. Sheet metal out of Australia. Thank you. John, I bought a 16-gallon gas tank from Bob Connell a few years back. I noticed over time that my fuel gauge stays full for a long period of time. And when you get to a quarter tank, runs out. So anyway, I don't know if there's a different sending unit or if you can bend it. I mean, it's more important to know where empty is. So that must be what's going on. I don't know anyone who makes one specifically for that 16-gallon tank. I don't know.
Hey, John.
I tried to find that out, John, and the thing is, you just gotta, first half of the tank lasts a long time. Second half goes a little faster. So you just have to know that.
Kind of like life. Yeah.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Gary here again with gas. John?
Yes.
So what is your take on ethanol-free gas? How important sorry, not for normal, not for throughout the year, but just for storage, like 4-month storage.
I don't know. We don't call it that here, so I don't know what it is exactly, but it used to be that you bought alcohol and put it in the gasoline, and that scavenged the water that would be in the gas tank, and it would combine with the alcohol and not damage the tank. But now people complain that there's a lot more damage inside the tank. So we should address that. Fred, what's your take on that? Fred does carb. He knows the damage and stuff with the carburetors.
I haven't seen any damage really. I mean, I've been using just ethanolated gas for 15, 20 years because we don't have anything else in Massachusetts. So I haven't noticed any problem with it.
Thank you very much. There's just so much controversy pro and
well, yeah. David Vasily, question regarding the replacement of an MGB cross-member bushings. Must the front springs be removed in order to complete the replacement? You want the real truth? Yes. Yes. Yep. Yep. You got to reach up in there and get that one long bolt. I did that in the shop maybe 2 months ago with Robert Davidson.
That's me.
Hey, that's right. And we just, it's there's just no way around it. But it went pretty fast. Of course, we had a hoist. You don't need a hoist, but you do need a trolley jack. So you get the jack way out on the end and jack up the suspension and take out that bottom bolt or take out the top bolt, depending on what you're doing and everything, and get that A-arm out of the way. And as long as you're doing that, you can paint it, and mission creep, paint the coil spring and scrape all the rust out of the spring pan and put Rust-Oleum back on it and everything so it looks nice.
Yeah, if you got a friend to help, it will help, especially when you've got like the trolley jack and everything else, or if somebody's trying to reach from the top and the other guy is underneath, it will help immensely. But if you're trying to do it by yourself, oh my gosh, I would still be laying in my garage doing it.
So how long did the first one take us, Robert?
I think the first one was about, because I was fumbling around, about between 4 and 5 hours.
Yeah.
And then the one on the other side was maybe half that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the one we had to pound the one bolt out because the front one had somewhat rusted and corroded. So put anti-seize on all of that stuff.
Yeah. So it just if you bring the trolley jack in from the opposite side and jack up the front, the A-arm way out at the end, way as farthest you can get, before you start crushing the cover, for the disc, and jack it up. It comes apart pretty easily. I mean, and you can do it yourself. I did that on my daughter's car. So.
And the only other thing is, boy, when it's done, I'm serious. My front end, it's so tight and so quiet now compared to what it was just before I brought it in, because the original rubber bushings had probably.
So then the question is, if you're going to change them, do you get the anti-caster shims? Do you change the caster of the front suspension? Some people would say, well, the original MGB was set up for bi-split tires, and so there was a little more kingpin inclination, a little more caster than you need with radial tires. And when you turn the wheel from left to right, if you're watching the front fender, the car rises and falls. So you're actually lifting the car by turning the wheel. So that's why turning the wheel is hard. The straighter you get, the less it lifts the wheel. So I don't know. Then you got to readjust the rack and pinion. But
John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. I finally got my audio going here. I didn't know if you had mentioned another company called Automat that used to also sell tops and interiors.
Automat, I'd forgotten about them. They they must have sold carpets for 1,000 different vehicles or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Automat. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were based on Long Island, New York.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Used to buy a lot of parts from them.
Okay.
Hey, John, John, the commentator. I love your mustache there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I modeled it after a guy I met in England who held the world record.
Bravo.
Well, you're still working at it though. The world record's got to be huge. Yeah. So here, Rudy's sent in from Pasadena to say that MG Mitten used to be in Pasadena, California. So interesting. So we're down to the end of our chat section. It was a smaller meeting this time. So I'm just gonna open it up. If you got a question about anything, I'm happy to take it.
Hey, John.
Yes, Fred.
One thing I wanted to mention is I just pulled out a distributor that was stuck in an MGB engine. And when I pulled it out, I found out that the lip where the clamping ring goes was crushed because somebody over tightened the clamping bolt. And so I was able to use JB Weld to repair the ring on the distributor, to salvage the distributor. And that works really well. I use a zip tie around there to create a dam and fill the whole thing with JB Weld. And then of course you have to straighten out your bolt and your clamping. So what I've noticed is there's a lot of these things on all these engines I've been pulling apart where they've clamped it too tight and crushed that ring.
Well, it's hollow inside there. And you look at the new distributors that are sold, it ain't hollow. It's solid. And so it can't crush. And I want to say that I sold Schlemmer just a huge quantity of distributors a long time ago. And a lot of them had broken rings on it. He said he I don't chucked them up in a lathe or something and cut that off and took a heliarc and put a ring, welded a ring on them and turned them back down again. But JB Weld is that's a real easy, sounds like a real easy, straightforward way of doing it. You can still crush it, but it'll hold it pretty well.
British Vacuum Unit repairs those.
Okay.
Yeah, they put a ring on there. Yeah.
They put a ring on there.
Okay.
The up until 59, it was a solid ring. But then they changed it to have a hollow ring about 1959, 1960.
Well, they didn't do that because they're saving aluminum. They must have thought it was better for clamping or something. But the downside of it is that you get it too tight and it wrecks the distributor.
Well, I believe that the ones before that were made out of zinc, and then they went to the aluminum, and that's when they made them hollow.
Okay. Oh, because the ones prior to that are the 2 DMs or the DKYs or something.
DM2s, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Got it. So that maybe at the introduction of the 25Ds, they changed the metal. Yeah, because those bodies are so much lighter.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought the aluminum could take the torque, but they were wrong. Yeah.
John, what is the symptoms of needing to get a distributor recurrent?
Well, the distributor does 3 things in the car, right? It makes the spark, it times the spark, and it distributes the spark. So there are 3 really critical things. It's the nervous system. So you've got all kinds of stuff in there that can go wrong. There's a long bushing. There's a long bushing inside the distributor, an oilite bushing that the shaft goes through. So it turns, but over a while it starts to wallow. And when it wallows, that means that it's going to open up the points sooner on 2 of them and later on 2 of them. It also means that the rotor isn't going to hit the cap correctly. It's gonna be a little farther away from one pickup point, and it's going to interfere with another pickup point. So when you take the cap off, there's all these brass shavings inside. Although new caps, sometimes that happens anyway because they're not made with the same care as the original ones were. So you've got a firing angle, right? Get back far enough. You got 0, 90, 180, 270, and then that whole firing angle rotates as the car begins to accelerate, and the timing advances. But if the points are breaking at 0 and 92 and 186 and 268, then no cylinder is doing the same thing that the other cylinder is. And so your efficiency from the engine is degraded. If you can take the shaft and wiggle the shaft back and forth, you can always wiggle it some. I mean, help me out, but if you can feel it, it's too much. Now, you used to be able to, you buy a bushing, 41,887, I don't know, but they could have made the oilite bushing with an inside diameter of 0.500, but they didn't, because they wanted to make sure you didn't buy your oilite bushing from someone else. So they made it 0.490, which doesn't exist. And just offhand, you can't ream an oilite bushing. So you can't get one that's smaller and ream it larger. Because it's bronze, it's too hard, and it crumbles. And anyway, so put all that together, and it's so inexpensive that I don't know what Bedinsky at British Vacuum Unit or Schlemmer at Advanced Distributor charges. I'm guessing about $250. Is that?
The last two I had done were about $165 each.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can buy a new distributor for $60, and it says suitable for all British cars. The advanced curves are all over the place. They're awful. So get your original one. No, let me step back again. The distributors up through 1967 make your car run the best. After 1968 and later, they make the car pollute correctly. So you want to make sure that you get the distributor that makes your car run the best. And these guys at the distributor rebuilding places will tell you what you should do to get the best performance.
Yeah, they're going to ask you what type of engine you have, and what your compression, what type of cam that you have, all those types of things. They need to know all those things in order to time it correctly.
I'd rebuild the carburetors myself. I've got the reamers for putting in the shafts and the bushings and so forth, but carburetors are real straightforward. But distributors, it's just that one long bushing, and then the springs, so you get the right advance rate. You can't come up with enough springs to get the right advance rate. So, you want to have it done professionally.
Also, the vacuum unit.
The vacuum unit, you can buy a new one, but that's again, the vacuum unit is a crude attempt at efficiency, and because the earlier cars don't have vacuum units, the race cars don't have vacuum units. It's for drivability. So anyway, yeah, put all that together, and it just makes sense to send yours off and have it done. Same thing with lever shocks. People say, oh, why don't you do a video on rebuilding lever shocks? It's like, where are you going to get the seals? How do you fit the compression piston? How do you get the ring? How do you get the piston ring collapsed and get it down inside the bore? I don't know how these guys do it. Apple and Peter Caldwell, Worldwide Imports. I don't know how they get inside there and do it, but there are just some things that it's like, nah, it's like rebuilding leaf springs. I mean, how would you ever do that yourself at home? You need an oven. You need, I guess, great big hot thing. So
hey, John, Gary again.
Yeah, Gary.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh God, I'm 71 years old. Oh, you were just talking a moment. Oh, Jesus Christ. Sorry.
Okay. Just come on back when the idea hits you. And if you think it's bad at 71, wait. Just all it does is get worse. So
I'll just throw this in. I got a set of front dampers done, or I purchased a front set of dampers from Worldwide, and it was before I got married, so it's before 2005. And those things are absolutely rock solid. I am absolutely happy with them. they do the best job.
We always used Worldwide for that, yes. Any other questions? We're down to 101 people. It's not even 9 o'clock yet. So
John, Gary, can I forget the question I was going to ask you before, but I have something else.
Sure.
A couple of days ago, my insurance ran out. I went for my favorite 270-kilometer Pacific Marine Circle drive on Vancouver Island. Victoria, Soup, Port Renfrew, across the island to Duncan and back to Victoria. Before I went for the drive, I filled my, I have a 1980 Roadster. I filled my overflow tank. I was surprised that it was empty, but I put in 500 milliliters into the overflow. I did not check the level below the brass fill plug. I came back after that drive to 200 miles. I parked it in the garage. The next day, my expansion tank was again empty, and there was probably about 200 mils on the floor, spread out in over a 2-foot large. I have a plastic thing on the floor, so it wasn't concrete, so it was able to disseminate. It probably 2.5 feet wide or something by 1 foot, whatever. I don't understand. So
I'll give you an explanation.
Yeah.
And this is just one explanation. When you turn the car off, the engine, I'm not an engineer, but I call it latent heat. Just as it takes time for the engine to warm up when you're starting to drive, it takes time for the car to cool when you turn it off, and between turning it off and going stone cold, the temperature spikes. You can get a lot of heat in there in the 20-30 minutes after you turn the car off. So that heat expanded the coolant in your radiator system and the air that was also in there. That caused the expansion tank to barf out that little bit of coolant that was on the floor. Then, as the engine cooled, it did what it was supposed to do, and it drew fluid from the reservoir, from the expansion tank, into the cooling system.
Jonah, I'm aware of that. I've done this many times before. I've had zero coolant on the floor, but also I'm curious where is it coming out of? Because when I look into the engine bay from the top, I see nothing, and when I look from the bottom, it's now the front is jacked up. I see some moisture. So if I'm looking from the front, it's to the left of the clutch.
That's where the overflow line comes from the expansion tank.
No, actually, I believe my expansion tank, the hose comes out forward, somewhere's around the what do you call the thing, that's the slam panel. So I'm just surprised. I've never seen anything before like this, and I guess I'm at a loss.
Well, there's always other stuff going on too. Sometimes water pumps leak only when they're running. They don't leak when they're still. They only leak when they run.
Oh, okay.
But that would blow coolant all around on the inside of the car.
No, that hasn't happened.
Okay, so I don't know.
All right, because on that day that I had my last day, I actually took it into my mechanic who I've used for many years, and I asked him if he would just clean up the bottom of my engine and transmission so I could determine where fluid might be coming from. So it was pretty clean. So and it's just difficult for me to see. But as I said, for years I've never had anything on the floor.
Yeah, well, you can always buy dye and put the dye into the radiator, and then look at it later with a black light, and wherever it is escaping from will illuminate, will fluoresce like an
Thank you.
electric.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I already purchased years ago a flashlight which had, I forget how many angstroms, but it was for a black light. So I do have the light.
Yeah. Okay.
Any special dye or a generic dye?
Well, I'm only used to Napa here in APA, and they have a dye that they sell under a Balkamp, BALKAMP part number, but beyond that. So
is there a different dye for oil and for coolant, or are they the same?
I think they're the same, but
Okay.
when you go in the auto parts store, they'll be able to tell you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
John, I do have a question about, I'm gonna buy the cylinder honing balls. And
Yeah.
I go to order them and it has 120 grit, 180 grit, or 240 grit. I had no idea that they had different grits. Or does it make a difference?
Yeah, it does. Just offhand, you probably want well, the first, when you take the engine apart, the first thing you have to do is get rid of the ridge at the top. There's always a ridge at the top. And then what you should use is, beg, borrow, or steal, a real hone with great big long stones.
I have one of those.
Okay, and that you can just spin and not worry so much about getting it to go up and down to get the crosshatch. So it's your dingleberry brush has got to have a finer grit on it, but I don't know that answer. We could take a look and see what mine is if it's indicated when you're up on Wednesday. So
Yeah, I had no idea there were different grits. I used to borrow one from my friend who's now out of town. I don't know what it was, so.
yeah. Well, that makes it's so much. You can use a much lighter drill because if you're driving one with long stones, you end up with a big drill. And what we used to do is either use a cherry picker or 2 step ladders with a 2x4 between them and then a big spring on it, so that you push the assembly, the motor and the hone down, and then the spring pulls it back up, and you can get a nice range on that when you're doing the spinning, to get rid of the problem of vagaries in the bore diameter, and then use that dingleberry brush to put the crosshatch on it just with a handheld drill.
Yeah, I've got it's on an engine stand right now. So.
Oh, okay, all right. That makes it pretty easy.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit down and on a chair and do some of that.
Okay, all right. Do we have any other questions for tonight?
One final question, maybe, John.
Yes, sir.
Once again, it's the crankshaft, the bolt that holds the pulley on the crankshaft.
Yeah.
And there's a locking tab behind that.
Yep.
The locking tabs that I've used in the past had a little, like a tang that would bend down and go into the Woodruff key groove on the edge of the crankshaft.
But
the ones, pardon me?
On this one, you got the tab, and you bend the top tab into the front pulley.
Right.
And you bend the bottom of the tab up around the bolt. There's a cutaway in the pulley.
Right, yeah. But the tabs I'm ordering now, I know the incision or the cut in the pulley where you can, lock it in. But I thought they used to have a tab that would bend in and sit in the keyway.
Not for the front pulley. For the cam, yes.
Yes.
For the cam, absolutely, but not for the front pulley.
Okay, then I'll just go back and do it properly. Thank you, John.
And you got the technique on how to get that bolt loose?
It came off pretty straightforward for me.
Well, so is the engine still in the car?
It's on the stand.
Oh, it's on the stand. All right. Okay. If it's in the car, then you take your 1 5/16 socket with a breaker bar, lean it to your right as you're facing it to pass it to the driver's side of the car.
Right.
That's the way the engine turns. You hold that, and you have somebody hit the starter motor just briefly. That's good
Break
enough, and it'll break it loose just instantly.
That's great to know.
Have it on the other side, and you're in the way, you'll either break your head or your mouth or your hands or your arms. There's a lot of torque there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Or if you gently put it in there and go inside and hit the starter motor, it'll slam it over and wreck something. So you got to make sure it's already stopped. It's already on the correct side of the car.
All right. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Hey, John, Gary again.
Yeah, Gary.
You're really earning your money today. So just before I came into the Zoom, I went and started to look at adjusting my valves. From the front of the car, number one, is the first or second the exhaust or the intake?
The first one is exhaust, and then it goes intake.
Okay, so here's the situation. I actually fabricated a tool that fits onto my crank bolt so I can turn my engine without doing the bumping, whatever.
If you watch my video number 6, number 9, one of the first videos I made, I explained why you can adjust the valves in about 2 minutes.
No, but John, sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. So I'm able to turn my valves very easily with this very thin spanner that I but when I was checking just before I came, and I'm gonna have to verify this after the phone call, is it seemed that I had 0 or almost 0 gap on the first one. So you said that was the exhaust. The car runs beautifully. Am I just not measuring properly, or could I have a really good running car with a 0 gap on my exhaust?
You could have a very nicely running car with 0 gap on your exhaust until that gap totally disappears, and then you burn the exhaust valve. So it's more common to have an exhaust valve recede into the cylinder head, and therefore the stem sticks up higher than it should. Valve rescission. This is not uncommon. And so you set it back to 13 thousandths like you're supposed to, and make sure that you're setting it at the right time and so forth. Get it at 13 thousandths, and then check it again soon. After you've driven it another 1,000 kilometers or something, just check it again, because valve rescission continues. It doesn't stop. It continues.
So I'm setting my valves cold to 15. So you basically
set them at 13.
Cold?
Cold.
Okay, fine, all right. So and that'll take care of this rescission problem.
Well, it'll take care of having no gap unless the valve continues to recede. And then after checking it 1,000 kilometers later, you'll find out whether you've lost some of your clearance again. Just offhand, you shouldn't have to adjust the valves every 12,000 miles. I mean.
It's been a while. I'm not sure.
Okay, but if the valve is starting to fail and the valve is starting to recede into the cylinder head, then you lose your gap.
And what's the fix for that?
Take the cylinder head off. Big time. Get a valve job.
Oh, that is a big job. Okay.
Yeah, big job.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Well, we're down to it here, and let's see.
Hey, John.
Yes, Jim.
If you got a minute, I'd like to relate some experience I had with a gas gauge that would not read empty correctly.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Now, before I reworked my MGA, I've just about religiously read every bit that Barney could write on his site. So I read the parts about the gauge. And to be sure, I ran through every aspect that Barney had listed on the site. So I recommend anybody whose gauge isn't reading correctly to read those sections of Barney's site that indeed goes into it. It's very informative. Now, so I followed every aspect of it. And one important aspect is to make sure that the gas tank, the tank itself, is grounded, because the gauge needs to read 0. When the gauge is empty, there's 0 resistance between the tank and the gauge. So, and I followed all that, and my gauge reads correctly, and I calibrated correctly according to what Barney has on his site. Worked out perfectly. So when I was rebuilding my 64 Buick, the gas gauge, I almost ran out of gas once when the gas gauge read about a little less than a quarter tank, and I knew that was wrong. So what I did on that old Buick, which I'm sure can relate to any gauge or any car of that particular vintage, is that there was excessive resistance between the wire. The tank had to be grounded first off, primarily, but also the wires that led from the float gauge, the float in the tank, the wires that go from there to the gas gauge on my old Buick just so happened to have were electrically dirty, not very clean. So I polished them off with Brasso, made sure every electrical connection was good and clean, and the gauge on the Buick now reads perfect. So as far as gas gauges go, I've got both of my old antiques running, so they give good calibration on whether or not the tank is empty.
Very nice. Yeah, on an MGB, the tank grounds right to the body, so there's never an issue on a B of having an isolated tank. You sure can have one on a T type or an A though. So,
yeah, that's been my experience with the A. Yeah.
I ran, matter of fact, on my car, I ran an extra round wire from the sending unit to the clip in the right-hand wheel arch that holds the wiring loom. There's a little tab that comes down that holds the wiring loom through one of those little J clips. And I ran an extra wire. It's not original, but I ran it there.
Yeah,
How
that's
is the tank grounded?
That's exactly what I did too.
Yeah.
How is the tank grounded on the A?
Through the fuel pump.
Through the fuel pump. Oh,
the line that goes from
if you cut the inlet line and put a fuel filter in there, which is the worst place to put a fuel filter anyway. But if you do that, then all of a sudden the gas gauge doesn't work. Yeah. Well, it's 9:12. We've had a nice chat, and let's see. Doug Clark says 139 people. Marty will have a number that she has too, but that's great. And sports car dealership in Longmeadow, Massachusetts. No, I don't know. I can't remember. John at Anyway, this is a great seminar for me because I got to hear about some places that I've forgotten about.
One question for you, John.
Say again?
Before we sign off, I went to take my car over to my father-in-law's the other night, and I filled it up, got there, and he had a whole bunch of stuff on one side of the garage, so I couldn't take it there. So I brought the car back home. When I brought the car back home, of course, at this time of year, it's dark. I got the headlights on, and I had just filled the car up. And on the way home, I'm reading 3/4 of tank. The next morning, when I went to take the car back over to his house, it's reading full. So do I have a voltage stabilizer?
Probably not, but I'm not sure. I don't know. You got a new sending unit in your tank or an original one?
It's probably, let me think, 2016.
Yeah, that's a new one. Yeah, they're sticky. The little thing that runs on the wires can get hung up on the wire. So.
Yeah, because when that one did crap out, it was just before we got to Kentucky that year. And we had filled the car up, and I was with Neil Wood, and then we drove along a little bit, and then I'd say we were in maybe half an hour, and the fuel gauge was dead. It was right over on E. So I'm assuming maybe I had a broken wire at that point, so I replaced it.
Okay. Yeah, we did a sending unit on it. I guess we did a sending unit on the gal's car one time, years and years ago down on Eastern Avenue. And whoever was doing the job plugged the wire into the wrong tab, and it plugged it right into the ground tab, you know, so the fuel gauge is stuck on full. And she calls me like a week and a half later, and she's real pissed, you know, and she goes, I just had you change that sending unit, and I just ran out of gas. And I said, well, what was your gauge reading? And she said, full. And I said, after a week and a half? And she said, well, I thought you just did a really good job on the tune-up. It's like,
oh God,
is that a compliment or not? You know. So anyway, hey, Doug Clark, are you still on?
Yes, John. Yes.
All right. Okay. What do you got for me? I can't remember. I can't remember if I've had. I had my late son's Afghanistan cap on.
Oh, that's good. What I have tonight, John, is kind of goes along with our. Oh yeah, there he is. Yeah,
yep.
James. Yeah. Speaking of vendors, this is, I guess we would call new old stock from Moss. It's a insulated MG beanie. It's I mean, it is super thick. It's not like the acrylic you buy nowadays. I bought this, I think, Christmas 20 years ago, when I got my first MG, and it has like a fleece lining inside.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I wear this when it's super cold. I mean, not when it's in the 30s or 40, you know, when it gets below zero. I mean, this thing is really warm. It has like a thick fleece lining.
Oh,
and
nice.
Moss sold these. They had Triumph and MG, I think Austin Healey. They still sell beanies, but this is a stocking cap, and it's very warm. And like I say, I wear this when it's super cold out, when I want to go outside when it's really cold, which isn't too often. But so that's I think somebody got at Moss 20 years ago for Christmas.
I got this at University Motors. Oh. Yeah. All right.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
I was wondering why you would not put a fuel filter at the inlet to the fuel pump.
Because because there's a screen in the fuel pump that keeps debris out. And if there's a problem, if you got to change it, if you want to change it, and you take it loose, gasoline runs everywhere, usually up your arm and into your armpit on an MG.
Okay, thanks, John.
Yeah.
Hey, John, Gary again.
Okay.
So I've got a 1980 MGB, and I believe it had on the fuel pump. This is advice for everybody. I think that Dave was the guy who built fuel pumps, Dave Braun or whatever. He sent me 10 small little diode things. So I'm not sure they're transient volt suppressors, which helps preserve the points on the pumps.
Points, yeah. They used to have condensers, and now they have diodes.
Yes, so mine, I believe the 80 comes with that. He sent me 10 for $5.
Okay.
I carry it with me to give to other owners. I never have, but it's just a point for other people to think about putting one of those things on to prevent your points burning.
Thanks. Thanks.
John, to your right, I'm sure it's not the same on your screen, is the hat I wear all winter. I've been driving with the top down. And my basic winter kit, electric heated gloves.
Yeah, those are nice. What you plug those into the power port on the center of your dash on your TD or what?
Yeah, on the TD, I just reversed the polarity because I'm too lazy to change to a negative ground, so it's still positive ground.
Okay.
Yeah, you plug it into those two little gizmos.
I was kidding, of course, but.
Oh, but I do. That's exactly what I do.
You weren't. Good for you. Okay.
Hey, John,
Guido.
I'm gonna be signing off. I just wanted to say happy holidays, happy New
Hey,
Year.
no, I'm gonna sign off too. So
Thank
yeah.
you for all your help and every time you answer the phone and help me out all throughout the year. I
Oh.
appreciate your help. And it's nice knowing you.
Hey.
Thanks, John. Good night.
Thank you for breakfast.
All right,
Guido.
John.
So,
Thanks.
Yeah.
all right, good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
John.
Good
You know,
night.
we'll
John.
see you,
John.
Hey, everybody.
Fred,
John, we'll see you
Tracy.
after 12:30 on Wednesday. Give me a chance to
sir.
stop at the Star Diner for breakfast.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Good night, all. Enjoyed it.
John.
Good
Okay.
night.
Good night.
Happy holidays.
Okay, John.
Oh, Sean. Yeah.
Very good.
Soon as I get this midget done, I'm gonna make another East Coast tour. But
Good.
I sent you a picture of that, didn't I, in its new state of nudeness?
Yeah.
Yeah, all sandblasted. I got a lot of work yet to do, so, all right,
Okay.
all right. See ya.
Thanks for everything, John.